All right, what we have here is a little tiny 8mm film camera. This is 50s actually. Bring the lights up in the middle. You see how it puts shadows on the page. I can't leave this light up. Look at this. Look at this. How tall is the unit relative to the this is all on OneNote, folks. Hit OneNote. It's already there. You don't need to jump up and photograph it. It's all out there already. This is probably 2 units deep by say 3 units tall, maybe. I don't know, something like that. If I look at kind of a front top side view, I think the side view is actually the best to look at it from. Look at that. Because it tells me kind of subdivisions vertically what this needs to be. So I'm saying, all right, I want everybody drawing this. Macintoshes go away. Screw redos right now. If I told you there wasn't a redo on any of this, would it change anything? Okay, so focus on what we're doing for the next 45 minutes and try to do your best drawing. Okay?
Hey Shay, would you want us to turn the portrait style?
You know, it's a good question. It's asking, should you turn the paper portrait style? You could on this. You could, because it is very vertical. You could do that. You could have on the Mac too. The Mac could have almost gone either way. I still prefer to draw on a horizontal sheet most of the time, just because I feel like it gives me kind of freedom to do those long vanishing lines easier. So you could, it's not a bad thought. You're free to do it either way, but if it's me, I'm probably going to stick with the horizontal paper just because of the vanishing lines, and I like to use them that way. So let's figure out how tall it is, and let's draw ourselves a box that represents this height. I will set this out here, but it's so small, I don't know that it does you a whole lot of good to look at it from here. It's probably best to just look at up on screen here and see kind of the side view first. And I'll try to put this over to the top corner a little bit. And I'm going to start this with a V, just like I did just about every other drawing. You know, I don't need the picture here to tell me how to set up a perspective. Here we go. V with a vertical, right? Start in the corner. How many units high versus wide? Well, I just draw a tick mark there that gives me kind of the width. I'm going to make this camera facing to the right. So let's make them all face to the right so they're all kind of oriented the same. But you might have a slightly different angle than me. I'm going to strike that up, strike that up. There's a width. How deep is that width? Well, we said it was a roughly 2 of that depth. Now I could use, do what? Yeah, I'll try. I got a lot of pieces here. Yeah, I got you. So I've got to go a little bit more deep, say too deep. I could use a diagonal method if I had time, but I don't. We're compressed for time. So I'm going to go and eyeball it. I'm going to say it's roughly that deep. Strike myself a vertical that way. Does that represent pretty close the thickness of this camera? Is that kind of what I'm looking at? Feels a little thick, actually, to me. A little thick? I'm going to come in a little bit thinner, shave a little off that width. Okay, look at that camera. Now here's where you really should be looking at the camera. The first 15 minutes of this one, yeah, study that camera. I'm just measuring the width versus thickness versus height, and I'm about to come to my big decision here, which is how high to make this. I haven't quite hit that yet. I'm trying to decide if I've got the base, the footprint. I like thinking footprint first, and then coming back and deciding where my actual thickness or height is. So I'm drawing kind of this box. I can tell you already my perspective's a bit shallow because I'm probably not going to end up looking down on this as much as I'd like now. I could change that. I could deep V this a little more and make it pull down a little more, but I'm going to go with it as is.
And I'm gonna say that, no, I am gonna tilt that a little more. It's just a little bit too much. So draw yourself a box that represents that camera, roughly. And let's see how close that is. Still feel like it's a little bit not tall enough. So I'm gonna shave some off the back. I'm just gonna keep taking mass off the back until I get this proportions like what I want. But that's got to happen back here too. Don't forget, you got vanishing points coming off the rear. And if you shave it off, you got to kind of adjust the whole thing again. Okay, so trying to kind of fix it.
Can you bring it up a little bit?
A box. Here you go. That's what you're trying to do. I think mine's getting closer, but it's still probably a little bit thick. But I can kind of fix that as I go because I got radiuses and things that are going to kind of knock some mass back out of it. So for me, whereas the Macintosh, I took that right-hand face and kind of projected that profile. On this one, I'm going to do the left-hand face. I got this kind of open left-hand face with a crank on it. Got these huge ellipses that are going to get in the way here in a second. I'm going to save those for the last because they're the most fun. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of measure off. You know, if I had to guess how thick this is, I've got a dimension here. I've got a dimension here. And then I've got the brown in the middle. And so I really, you know, I could go in and start plotting those out. I'm not. I'm just going to estimate it. Visually estimate it. How thick should that be off the bottom? Well, this is a fairly thin portion here. Carry that over. That gets wrapped around the rear, although I'm not really going to see it back there. And up top, I've got a much thicker portion of the light brown up top that I'm gonna maybe have to fudge a little here to still get the height I need. I feel like I'm still a little low. So I'm gonna raise the deck on this when I get that arc in there. And go ahead and wrap that around. You see what I'm doing? All I'm doing is using this brown subdivision to kind of build my proportions off of my vertical here. And when I get that close, then I'm gonna come in, you'll notice this is an arc. It's higher at the front than it is at the back. So I'm going to come over here on this side face and kind of start that arc lower, and I'm going to actually extend beyond my height here because I think I still made it just a hair too short. So I'm going to come up a little bit higher and drop back down. And I'm also, this is a little trick, but because there is a step in material here on that corner, I'm actually going to come in just inside that corner and give myself a little bump out. This is where those little details can add a whole lot to the realism of a sketch, is to come in and give yourself a little jog like that, where you know there's a material, sometimes even exaggerating where that needs to be. Then I'm gonna bring that viewfinder mass across. It's set back just a little from that corner, which makes sure I'm going to the right line. It's probably more like right in there. And this drops back over to there and kind of blends to the back. I almost don't even see that. So I end up with something like that, and this edge gets rolled and ends up becoming a nice radius there too, which I haven't really put in yet. Okay, that's what's going on there. I'm going to go ahead and put the viewfinder in there since I'm on that face, and this is kind of a fun detail. I'll add some fun, get myself a quick win. And I will put that in there. It's essentially an offset rectangular cutout, but with radiuses to kind of knock those corners off. And then that viewfinder is set back in there considerably. You know, so if I look at this, set back in there considerably. So I'm going to go ahead and build that depth in. Again, following to that vanishing line, if it were one right there, and would roll around. Gives me some depth. There you go. Close enough. Gets me started. I'll come back to that. I'm going to go ahead and work down the back side of this very, very quickly. I have another step out that's going to happen down here. This is slightly tapered. Steps out, rolls. So this becomes a great corner to actually put the triangle back on and put a little bit of heat to the bottom side of this line. So I can go on in here first and put a radius. And this is set in a little bit from my rectangle because it's tapered just a little bit, but I'm eyeballing this. I'm really not, and this may get me in trouble here in a second. I could see where I might be just a hair inside of where I need to be, but freehand works both ways. The slop that you get out of it allows you to come back and fudge things easier too than a technical drawing. So there's kind of two sides of the coin there. And I'm putting radiuses on this as I go. I think I missed that bottom line. I can tell already this was really not strong enough. And that needs to be a little lighter. And this comes back to a slight taper too. All right, so I got my top, I got my bottom. I got a little bit of an offset right here, which I'm gonna go on and extend up, not quite to full darkness, because I also have an ellipse that is over here on this side. Let's look at this viewpoint. The circle, where is it relative to the brown rectangle? The crank. Slightly off center, but just barely, and up about centered line to where one of those are. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. So again, could I go in here and measure all this out? I could, or I could just estimate. It's about center line of that ellipse is right there. The minor axis of that ellipse is going that direction. Where do I hit that? Well, eyeball it. See if you can hit it. I'm going to go with minor. I know where my minor axis is. Now it's just a matter of kind of finding the degree and seeing if you can hit the degree. Easier said than done. Shay made it look a little easy. One, because I had a really dull pencil and I could hit 50 ellipses there that are all different and they all meld together and you can't tell which one's right or wrong. But the big thing is just to be fluid and try to draw the whole thing. I'll come back later and work on that. The crank is a little metal part. I'm actually going to draw it straight. This is kind of at an angle here. It's a flat metal part that steps out and actually it continues flat, first of all, and then it actually ends up kind of triangular towards the end. So it tapers faster than the perspective. That actually ends up making it look even more that way. And my child, many moons ago, tore off the crank that used to be right on the end of this, but I'm going to include it here so you can see the way it was supposed to be. And again, that crank is on an axis that goes towards that minor axis. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in a little bit of that just to kind of show where that is. Center line is about, it's set back just a little off of, oh no, it doesn't matter. Just put it wherever. I drew it straight, but yeah, you could angle it if you want to, or it kind of flopped down in that photograph, and that's why it was at that angle. And now I'm just coming along here. This is one of the contours that's out forward of everything else on my drawing, so I know I can come in and darken it in. It's not going to be in the way of anything later. And I can come on in here and shape that up. And I could put in Bell and Howell. I think it's got the little Bell and Howell mark in there too, but that just helps with perspective a little bit. And then I can come back in and darken the parts of that ellipse that I think maybe were the best, if I wanted to do that too. And again, sometimes it's about kind of finding that in the mess of what you created freehand, really quick freehand, and sometimes you can kind of add some depth by creating kind of an offset like that. It's a tough thing. I tell you, sometimes it's easier just to go faster rather than slower on this stuff. The more you work it, the more you correct it, sometimes you end up just not happy with it. I think those first few ellipses were better than the ones I ended up trying to come in there and clean up just now. So it kind of, speed does help in some cases on this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and draw the outside boundary of this, even though it's going to fall behind. See, this is where my fudging's getting me in trouble. I'm actually not on vertical here. Had a feeling that might happen. I'm going to go ahead and hit these ones a little harder where you can see now this is napalm bomb at this point. I'm hitting like full 90% on the napalm bomb. I'm hitting 90% on the Prismacolor. No more 5 or 10%. I'm hitting it really hard right here to pop. And it does make a difference because now you can see the values popping out on here, and hopefully it's making it a little easier for you to see in here too. All right, backside, I do have a few interruptions. I'm going to totally fudge those just to show where they are. And you'll notice I'm doing this more or less with just putting an interruption in there, not necessarily even being that precise with it, but just showing that there is a break in the action on that backside. These are going to come forward. I do need to kind of make sure I hit the perspective right on these, but these are going to be light. And all right, I've been avoiding that front face long enough. It's time to get in there and do it. I got to screw around with these big ellipses. This is where you either make it or break it. They're tricky. So real quick, this was as far as I made it on the last one before my camera cut out on me. I'm gonna see which one I like better. This is the one I've done with you guys, which I have hit a few harder lines on. Here's the one I did a while ago. I'm liking the one I did a while ago better. 2 in a row, I think the first one I did was better. Sometimes it's just that way.
Can you put the front-facing picture up there?
Well, I tell you, I'll put the really front-facing picture up here because I think this is the view now that we need to look at. Look at how big those circles are. Look at how big those lenses are. This is a big one. Because we think of these lenses we have on our phones and everything now as these micro lenses, but look at this. Huge, huge lenses, right? And look at how much they stand off the side. They protrude a good 1.5 inches, okay? They step way out. If I look at the side view, I actually want to look at the side view here. Look at that. I guess technically it'd be this way, wouldn't it? So look at that. I'm sorry, the shadows are still up there. I should have brought this down. Look at the difference here. So what do I need to do to draw those 3 lenses? Well, I do need to know how far they step out. I do need to know their diameter, but I also can tell that this first lens right here is actually on this face. It's the only one of the 3 that actually is visibly on this face. You'll notice it's not centered. It's actually offset, maybe 1/3 down that face. So let's take a peek at this. Wow, where would that be? It's about, let me get over here because I think you need to see the front view. I think is easiest. I'm projecting where that lens is going to be and where the center line of it is going to be. It's just off center. It's about right there on that front face is about where center line is going to be there, roughly. Does that make sense? So again, this is just sighting and estimating. Now, that doesn't get me far because I got 2 other lenses that are out here in space that have center lines. But I also know that this one's going to be in front of those other two. So you could argue that drawing this one right first might help me. Maybe, maybe not. It's kind of a tough call. Because you could also say drawing all three of these center lines could be a good idea. Let's do that. Let's draw all three center lines first, and then draw this lens in its entirety afterwards. The next center line is up, and on. So this is triangulated. Somebody called this a fidget spinner a while ago in the other class. It's kind of a fidget spinner kind of shape that actually holds the back side. It is actually that shape that holds the back side of these three lenses together. It's actually almost the same size as a fidget spinner. So these are spring loaded, by the way. They spring load, they rotate. This is how you selected your zoom. Really elegant. Anyway, this is kind of how you do it. So let's draw kind of a triangulated shape off of that. I think, you know, we know that the center line of that is cutting right through here. But I'm going to estimate it, folks. I don't know how else to do it at this point without spending a lot of extra time. So I'm going to come off of center line here is a good space right way out here. It's beneath that line, probably somewhere in there. Did I come off too far? I think I came off a bit too far. It's probably right in there. And then I got center line down here, which is going to be straight down. So I know that the next center line is straight down from there, and it's essentially the same distance above and below, if I did this right. So it feels wrong, though. It feels like these ought to be spread more, or that this is over too far. Let me pull this one in a little bit. Trying to kind of, now here's where I'm not looking at my drawing or at the photo anymore. I'm looking at the drawing. How do I make these three look like they're a triangle? Now, I'm starting to feel that bridge of, okay, I'm not looking as much at the camera anymore. I'm starting to think about, how do I make these look like they're triangulated? And so I'm going to say right in there, right in there, right in there are my 3 points. And I'm going to come back to these two in a minute. But the first thing I'm going to do is draw the thickness of what this is. So you'll notice this lens kind of is a conic section right here, steps out quite a bit. So I'm going to start an ellipse. Where does that ellipse's minor axis go? Goes to that left-hand vanishing point, right? It has a thickness, a fairly significant thickness right here. I'm going to just bring that forward, replicate that with another ellipse. Missed the second one there. Try again. And that thickness replicates what's kind of going on here. I might have come a little too far, maybe, possibly came a little too far. Back it off a little bit. I'm not even to my lens yet. I'm still to the mount. This steps out and becomes a much bigger lens, and it actually is a cone right here, but so minor it actually doesn't show up much in perspective. Keeping my ellipse the same, degree the same, I'm opening this up and making it a little bit bigger ellipse, and maybe a hair too big. How big does this come up on my product? Actually, it's pretty close. I might have left, maybe it's just a bit too big. Let me scale that down just a little bit. All right, now I got my first one. This is actually starting to be, that's actually the first line. That's this line right here. The first one I'm kind of going to see. Some of this other stuff is drifted behind here, and I'm not going to see it that clearly. That's pretty close. Now I just keep going. I'm going to bring, actually, for my sake, I'm going to bring a couple of vanishing lines forward to show that tangential area there. That helps me kind of draw that next ellipse. But I'm still drawing these all minor axis to that left vanishing point, and I'll give it that next thickness. And let's go on and add a little smoke to that too, and see if we can get the hardness of that showing up where you can kind of see it better on screen. All right, I'm going to stop before I do any more hard points on that. I think I think I'm pretty close, though. I can't tell. What you guys can, Michael, what do you think? Does that need to be does that need to open up or close down, or does that look okay? I can get weird looking at it up close. It's pretty okay. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to replicate in the background that first planar part. It's over here. It gets blended together, actually, although I can just barely see that. That becomes one piece. Let's look at the side view again. I think the side view is telling us the most at this point. And bringing that forward a thickness. Again, still going to that left-hand vanishing point. Growing this to be that second ellipse, second large ellipse. Bringing that forward, that thickness. And I got the other one there I'm looking at, so it actually helps me. Oh yeah, that one fell a little bit, didn't it? Yep, that one sunk a little bit. I can feel it. See how that one actually wilted? I missed my minor axis. Go in there and fix it. That's better. Come back and work on that a little bit more. And then I got my third one, which is down underneath here. Again, I'm building the back out of it first, the same way I did the others, with a similar thickness to keep growing that plane forward. And then the back side, which is right in here. And then the front side, which gets grown out. Quite hit that one either. I got a little gap difference here. Now, at this point, I'm totally looking at this and not my camera. I realize, oh, I'm a little tighter there than I should be. Let's just correct it. Go back in, pull it back. Even if my constructions are now incorrect, I'm actually trying to hit this thing more accurate to the drawing and less about the camera. I totally missed that one. Let's see if I can get this corrected. It's hard. You get so many lines going, and then you have to keep up with them. Pencils help you correct. They help you come back. Yeah, I missed this bottom one bad. I need to draw my minor axis. That's what it was. I wasn't staying true to my drawing. If I'd just drawn those minor axes, I would have seen how off this one, bottom one was. Now I'm fixing it. I'm working with extremely dull pencils at this point. I really almost wished I had gone in and sharpened them before your session, but I didn't. And they're fighting me a little now. I don't have any points left. Got a lot of ellipse sections to cover here to get around all these things. It's a lot. All right, so I've got most of my lenses. I'll butcher this bottom one. Try to save some of it with shading. Shading sometimes can bail you out. Sometimes it just muddies it. And we'll see what happens here. But try to add a little bit of kind of hatch shading. I like hatching actually as a term better than shading. It kind of better represents what we're trying to do here probably. But that gives a little bit of cylindrical quality to these that makes me not necessarily have to even fill in all of the lines. You know, I'm trying to kind of get around some of these lines here. I can also put spherical lenses in here, which that also kind of helps they have spherical lenses of different diameters. So I can come in here and kind of hide some of those details with a partial sphere as well. And yeah, the bottom one was really my albatross here. That one really hurt me. If I had done a little better there, I think I'd have been okay. I think. All right, and then I got the faceplate real quick. Boom. Let's put this in here. This will add a lot of quick detail. 20-second faceplate. All right. One more big ellipse, that's the control knob on the front. Same minor axis as the lenses. Has a kind of flat that runs through it. And now I'll come in and kind of darken the areas of that where it needs to be. Technically, there's some of these little indicators too. All of them are ellipses that use the same minor axis. Let's see, Bell and Howell's right across here. Front view helps. Sorry. Bell and Howell. Kind of abstract the mark. It's better oftentimes not to try to make that logo look exactly like it is, but put that shutter button in here. It's a really lame shutter button, but it is right on the corner, which is kind of interesting. Right on the front corner of this. All right, time to go nuclear with this one last hit with everything I got. I've lost one of my two pencils, which had more tip on it, but I'm gonna go ahead. I'm down to nubs here pretty much, but I'm gonna try to hit a few more really dark lines, finish this thing off with a triangle, and try to deepen and darken some of these outside lines just to kind of show this form a little bit. This rolls around and hits right there, scoots up, hits that, rolls around. This might look good shadowed and shaded in a little bit darker even because it's behind. Things that are behind and out of the way you kind of want to show as behind and out of the way. Technically got some more depth in here too, but these are actually just painted on. What am I missing? I feel like I've left something out here. I don't like the bottom of this. So at the end of the day, I'm gonna really thicken up this ground line just to fake the perspective a little more and say, you know what, I still didn't get, look at that. Just thicken that thing up like crazy, because I never felt like I got enough angle going there. The only way I can quickly and easily perhaps fudge it and make it feel right again is to add a super thick line on the bottom. See if it can kind of hide that a little bit. And again, if you want to put some reflecting lines, you mimic essentially what's going on the angle or whatnot on the verticals. Kind of do a uneven vertical hatch. Sometimes this helps to kind of hide some of those old construction lines too. Give it a little grounding. Could do a lot more in these lenses. Probably done too much already.
Shay, isn't there a little light gauge on the side?
Yes, you're right. I forgot to put that in. There's a little window. This is easy compared to those ellipses though. It's like just a little, if I can find the viewpoint, what he's talking about is right there. It's right between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 seconds. You've got a light meter. So, close enough. I'm not liking the way that's light out on the tip. I typically would darken something on the outside there, but I don't know. Y'all can do better than that one. That one's this is the first one. I think my perspective and proportions, my craft was just a little better on the first one before the camera went out, but all right, what are we at? 5 till 3? Close. We got behind the first one, but I think we caught up a little on this one.
What FRE is it?
This is FRE 11. The first one we did, the Mac is FRE 10. So this is FRE 11. All right. Most folks struggle with just the angle and of the ellipse on this, our ellipses, angles of ellipses, and the minor axis of those ellipses. It's really, because there's 3 of them, I think it complicates it, and trying to hit 3 that are somewhat close. And you can see how much I destroyed the bottom one and kept trying to work it out, and sometimes shading hides some of that, but it can be difficult to get all 3 of those looking like they're technically about the same diameter, and plus they're just awkward shape to begin with. They're a little bit larger than what we expect them to be, and so it's kind of like the keyboard on the Macintosh. You're battling that same thing. So as I'm looking at mine, you know, kind of in retrospect here, I do feel like the proportions of mine are still a little thick. I think I had it a little bit closer in proportion on this beginning drawing here, perhaps. This was the first one. And I had to finish it on the whiteboard, so I didn't get to finish. But I think the proportions are closer on the box here than they are on this. This feels still a little bit thick in this dimension, maybe in this dimension actually. It's really from here to here. It probably should have been trimmed back a little more. But okay, we've got a little bit of time for to complete. If you have not completed your tech drawing, your paper airplane,